Today, we're going to be showcasing some of our best Lamborghinis in our showroom. Let us know which one you can see yourself driving.
The Lamborghini Gallardo was Lamborghini's most successful car, selling just over 14,000 cars over its 10-year life cycle. So when they needed to replace it in 2014, when production ended, its replacement had some big shoes to fill, and they nailed it with this one. I'm Nima from MVL Leasing, and this is a 2016 Lamborghini Huracan Spider. If you or somebody you know is in the market for a high-end or exotic car, you can hit our link in the top of the description. My email is there too. And don't forget to mention that you saw us on YouTube. Okay, let's get some numbers out of the way. 602 brake horsepower, 610 metric horsepower, just over 400 foot-pounds of torque. Top speed, 202 miles an hour. This particular one is an LP610-4. -4 means all-wheel drive, and it's got a 7-speed double-clutch transmission. I think this car looks good from any angle, but especially the front. So let's just get down here and just go over a few quick details. Most Lamborghinis, especially their mid-engine supercars, you can almost draw a straight line from the tip of the bumper to the top of the windscreen. And this has kind of been a design cue that's common to a lot of their cars, and it looks very futuristic and extremely slippery, and it's pretty much a giant wedge, which helps the car stick to the ground and cut through the air. This front bumper is specific to LP610s. There's other variants of the Huracan which have small stylistic changes that you really wouldn't notice unless you had the cars beside each other. You're gonna notice throughout the car that you're gonna see the shape of a trapezoid in a lot of the design. You can see trapezoid in the cutout of the hood here. The headlights are shaped a certain way. The grills, the vents inside the car, the tail lights, everything kind of carries on this theme, and it's kind of aircraft inspired. The name of the color is called Aurantia Borealis. Aurantia is orange, and Borealis probably has some sort of reference to the sun. It's a very popular color. And this orange to Lamborghini is about as iconic as red is to Ferrari. Any Lamborghini that you get in this color looks good, and this is what they call a 4-layer paint. You're gonna see that it looks extremely rich, extremely creamy. They definitely don't spare any expense when they're painting these cars. When Lamborghini revised the Gallardo for 2009, called it the LP560, one thing that it introduced was the LED Y formation in the headlights. This was introduced by the Gallardo, popularized by the Aventador, and carried on by the Huracan. So I'm just gonna hit the unlock button just so you can kind of see what they do. Now, when the car is on, these are lit up in a nice white LED, and then when you put on your turn signal, these are what kind of blink as well. Now, this car, you know, is an LP610 because this is the standard wheel. This is called a 20-inch Giano wheel. Again, here's more trapezoids, okay? Standard carbon ceramic braking system provided by Brembo, Pirelli P0 tires made for Lamborghini. You got the little L inscription right there. When you're ordering the car, you can have your brakes powder coated from the factory in a number of different colors, but I thought it was a really nice touch that whoever had spec'd this car had the brake calipers to match the paint, especially when you have black wheels. Really kind of helps show off your braking system. When you have a wheel like this that has kind of these extremely open spokes, you kind of get a really good look at these carbon ceramic brakes, which are really good, better for heat dissipation. You can beat on these things. They have a long service life. I've yet to meet anyone who's had to replace these because it takes a long time in order to go through them. Interesting thing about carbon ceramic rotors is on a steel rotor, you can tell that they need to be replaced because they get scored and they form a ridge at the edge of the rotor where the brake pad makes contact. Carbon ceramic rotors are actually weighed in order to determine if they need to be replaced or not. If you look closely, there's actually a inscription here on the rotor hat that says minimum weight 6,388 grams. So if it gets close to this weight, you know that this rotor's service life is done. It takes a long time to do that. And there's also little markings on the rotor that kind of expose themselves over time in order to let you know that they're gonna need to be replaced. They get replaced because they get oxidized over time and after use. So they wear in a different way than steel rotors and are far superior. This car is a 5-bolt setup. You can also get these cars with center locking wheels. Not very common before the Lamborghini Huracan switched to Evos. but still a really good looking wheel. Let's just move our way more down the side here. A couple things I want to point out. The mirrors are actually kind of reminds me of the STO Elemento car that you can get from Lambo. It's racetrack only, where the mirror is on the door and it's actually like leaning forward. So it's kind of like pointing forward so it can cut through the wind. I think that's a really nice touch. When you get the Huracan Spider, the window frame stays black. So the whole car is orange or whatever color you decide, but the window frame stays black. I think this is really nice because it changes the silhouette of the car optically. And when the roof is up, it kind of makes it look lower than it is. Even if it did have color, it's going to be one of the lowest cars around, but I thought it's a really nice stylistic touch. Now, everyone thinks that every Lamborghini should have doors that go up that are like dihedral or scissor doors like that, but that's reserved for the big boys. So cars like the Gallardo, the Yalpa before it, and the Huracan, you just have conventional doors, but they do still have one nice party trick. So when you press unlock, your door handle kind of exposes itself and makes it easier to open like this. So let's just go down here to the rear quarter panel. A couple things that I want to point out. So you're going to see some vents here. These feed your air intake system, one on each side. Air goes into the engine like this and into your filtration system and your intake manifold. Down here, you got some scoops. Inside there are some radiators. This is for, I don't know what this particular radiator is for, but it's gonna be for something like coolant or engine oil. When you're looking at a Huracan that is 2015 to 2018, they all have a badge here on the side that lets you know which model that you're looking at. So I know enough that I can just look at the car and know which model it is, but for those who don't, you just look at this and you can tell exactly what it is. LP610-4. LP is short for longitudinal posterior because the engine is longitudinal and it's behind you. 610 is the metric horsepower. 4 means all-wheel drive. When you come back here, you'll see all the brakes are nice and matching. 305 tire in the back. I'm not sure if I mentioned, but they're all 20-inch wheels, staggered setup, so they're skinnier in the front than they are in the back. Okay, the back of the car is another angle of this car that I really love, is because it's really low and wide. When you have these exhaust tips on each side of the bumper, they're angle cut and they're staggered. So optically, it kind of widens the car and they kind of ask for a lot of attention. They sound really good too. This particular car is equipped with a sport exhaust. Hardware-wise, it's no different than a car without sport exhaust. You're pretty much paying $2,800 for software that alters when your valves open and close. The factory exhaust system on this car is really good. This particular car has a sole performance exhaust system, but when I look through this vent to look at where your muffler would normally be, I don't really see anything. So it's more of like a muffler delete. So this particular car sounds a little bit obnoxious, but I do have the factory exhaust system, which I think is more than enough for you to like. This vent right here, this is all made of steel. Now this is designed to help expel a little bit of heat from your engine bay, but this is where your muffler would normally sit. So when we look through here, and we'll get the camera to come in a bit, there's a lot of heat shields in there to keep that hot muffler heat kind of away from the actual engine. It's a problem when you have a lot of heat in your engine bay, and when you have a car that's mid-engine, heat soaking is kind of a problem. So sitting in traffic, something the car can do, but it doesn't like it. You can tell that this car has seen a lot of heat in its day because this steel grille here looks a little bit tarnished. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just the finish that goes just because of all the heat from all those years and all that driving. It doesn't mean the car had the piss beaten out of it. It's just part and parcel to, you know, this type of engine. You got parking sensors. You got a rear view camera right here that's built into your bumper. You're gonna notice a lot more trapezoids. That'll be a game you can play when we're kind of taking a look at this car from all the different angles, inside and outside. See how many trapezoids you can find. There's one here. They're built into here. They're built into the taillights. One cool thing about this car, people kind of complained about this when the car first came out, was that it doesn't have a spoiler. Every time you think of a Lamborghini, you think of some crazy spoiler like the thing's ready for liftoff. They integrated the spoiler into the bodywork with this car. So even though there's no spoiler that's retractable or anything like that, it still has lots of downforce, and it's a bit of a cost-cutting measure, but I think it's a really good design challenge in order to create downforce in the back without having to create you know, a really visually loud spoiler. And I think they really did that well with this car. This car has the standard silver exhaust tips. You can get them in gloss black and matte black. Doesn't change how the exhaust sounds. It's really just a look thing. They're built into this nice diffuser. As far as Lamborghinis go, this is actually a pretty tame rear diffuser. You got two pretty little nubby fins here. on each side. We're gonna get some shots of the underneath where I can show you guys how the bottom of the car is completely flat. When you come up here, you can see your integrated third brake light into this fixed spoiler I was telling you about, and this is the engine cover. So not a lot to see because it's a Spider. When you have a coupe, you have a nice option where you have a glass engine cover. Most people got that, but let's just take a look under here and see what we got. Okay, so this stuff here that looks like foil, this is actually the heat shield for the muffler. So this helps keep the heat from the muffler away from the engine. And what you have here is your two air boxes. This is your standard air box. We showed you in the video of the STO, they look a bit revised, they're a bit of a different shape. You have these accordion style tubes here that feed air into the air box from those vents I was pointing to out on the side. This welded masterpiece here is your dry sump lubrication system. This is where you put the oil in. You can see the intake tubes that go into the intake manifold over there. Not a lot you can do here when you're trying to work on the car. Most of these cars, you access a lot of the stuff from the bottom because you have these huge flanks on each side. And there's certain stuff that you can do. There's certain stuff that you have to do when you want to service the engine, but a lot of this stuff is more easily accessible when you're underneath the car, when the car's on a hoist. When you get a Spider, you have these nice little vents that are on the engine cover. These serve a couple purposes: downforce, heat dissipation. I like that they're a different color, kind of makes them stand out more. More trapezoidal design cues here. A lot of stuff aircraft inspired. I see this sort of stuff and I think of the engines of a fighter jet or even the intakes of an F-22. And when you look at an F-22, there are a lot of design cues are taken from that jet, which is probably one of the nicest jets, fighter jets ever made, and are integrated into the design of this car in a number of ways. Okay, so this car actually has electrically adjustable seats. A few things I want to point out on the interior of this car. So the interior is two-tone. Nero Ade is what they call it. It's black leather and Alcantara. The contrasting stitch, which is on the dash here, on your seats, on your armrests, on your doors, the piping on your floor mats are all an orange stitch that they call a Rancho Leonis. All those colors are selectable when you're designing the car. So are these embossed Lamborghini crests in the headrest. Not a lot of people know that when you have a Huracan Spider over a Huracan coupe, like you have a rag top. And the reason why they have a rag top is because it takes up less space behind the occupants. So there's very little space to work with anyways between the seats, the firewall, and the engine. So they went with a rag because it takes up less space. Now, even though they did that as a space-saving measure, it does increase the size of the firewall. So my taller customers simply do not fit in this car. Even me being 6'1", my forehead is in perfect line with the top of the windscreen. Most people fit in it, but if you're on the tall side, it's going to be hard for you to fit into a Spider. Even if you have the race seats, what probably gives you a bit of an advantage because the seat sits a tad lower, it's pretty tight in here. One option that this car has, I don't know why this is an option, it's called the branding package. It pretty much puts a Lamborghini badge right on your dashboard here. A cup holder is an option on this car, believe it or not. This one does not have it, but if it did, you press a little button here. That, as in the STO video, you saw that you can just press this and the cup holder kind of exposes itself. It's just to say that you have one, and it's really just for you. You have a nice console here. I like the tactile buttons, okay? I think that stuff is kind of important. In the Gallardo, you had 3 analog gauge pods that are on your dash. With the Huracan, you have a digital readout right here above all your climate control. Lamborghini has popularized this aircraft style start-stop switch. Again, I hope they don't get rid of this. It's a really nice feature and makes starting your car a lot more fun. Your reverse is actually like a handle that you pull backwards. Everything's electronic. It's just for look and everything like that, but you pull this back and the car goes into reverse and your rear view camera displays the image and your digital instrument cluster that Lamborghini calls the virtual cockpit. So this not only shows your speedometer, your revs, which stays front and center where it should be, but it can display any form of information that you want. If you have your navigation going, then it'll show your map right in the middle or off to the side. It kind of does a really good job of taking any information that you want to see and keeping it right where your attention should be. This particular car has navigation. Not all do, but most do. Up here you have your row of buttons, which is kind of common to Aventador, Gallardo, and other cars. So you have your window switches up here. You have the switch for your front lift kit, which I think is an essential option for any of these cars. Traction control, your hazard lights, temporarily disabling your parking sensors. Climate control is all up here, and everything to do with navigation and media is all down here. You have a volume knob, something I've told you guys that I really like. Another thing I hope that they don't get rid of. You have a center console here. It's stitched in Alcantara with that orange stitch I was telling you about. I would probably have a hard time putting my phone in here, but there's lots of other stuff you can put in there, like credit cards, money, which I hope you have if you're driving this. Back here, you have a slot where you can put CDs and SD cards. Sometimes you can put music on an SD card and play off of that. Never seen anybody use those. Don't even know why they still have them. The firewall is nice because it's stitched in leather and carries on that orange stitch that I was telling you guys about. One of my favorite features when it comes to these sliders is this rear window. So you have a switch here to operate your roof, and on the other side of your parking brake, you have another switch that's identical, but that's just to operate this rear window. So when your roof is up, you can have this window down. And when you have this window down, you can hear all the air induction from your intake system, and you can really hear that V8 roar without really being exposed to the elements. Really nice touch. One thing that I wanted to mention about the steering wheel that's to me has become really convenient is all the buttons on the steering wheel. So similar to what I was showing you on the Ferraris, where they kind of moved everything off of your steering column in terms of wipers and turn signals onto the steering wheel, Lamborghini followed suit in this case. So you have a button here for your high beams. You have a button here to control your turn signal indicator, and you can cancel them, your wipers and your washer fluid. The one thing I like about these Lambos too is the steering column mounted shift paddles. On a Huracan, you can get these made out of carbon fiber, but these ones are crafted out of a nice piece of aluminum, anodized black, and they're nice and tall too. So when you're driving this car, you know, the paddles stay in the same spot. I find it's easier that way, and they become kind of addictive to be banging these out, because when the car downshifts and when you're manning the gears yourself and you downshift, the car kind of does that snap, crackle, and pop, and it's going to become your favorite button to press. So I just want to talk about a little bit about of the blood and guts of the car. Now, the transmission, it's made by Graziano. It's what Lamborghini calls Lamborghini Doppia Frizione, which is double clutch. So it's 7-speed, and the way a double clutch transmission works is that you always have 2 gears actuated. One is responsible for odd gears, one is responsible for even gears. So when you're going from gear 1 to 2, number 2 is already engaged, so the shift is absolutely seamless. A huge upgrade over the Gallardo, and it shifts extremely fast. Very well done. Graziano actually made the double clutch transmission for the Ferrari 458, for the Mercedes SLS, probably a bunch of other cars as well. It's not the same transmission, just the same company. So I'd say these guys know what they're doing. It's got all-wheel drive. Now, the all-wheel drive system is very similar to what's found in the Audi R8. And Audi has kind of really taken ownership with this whole branding thing when it comes to Quattro. Quattro is good from a marketing standpoint, but really what it is underneath is a Haldex all-wheel drive system. Haldex is the company that creates the all-wheel drive system for these cars and all the Audis. It's a really cool system. It's pre-biased to the rear, 70% rear, 30% to the front. It can torque vector, so it can send power to each side and front and back. Up to 50% can be sent to the front. When you have a sports car like this that's all-wheel drive, it's always going to be rear-wheel biased for the best driving dynamics. It does a really good job of vectoring that torque and kind of helping mitigate understeer. On the steering wheel here, which I think is really nice, it's got a flat bottom with these nice thumb rests here. It's kind of blocky, which I like. And when you're driving a high-power all-wheel drive car like this, you need a firm grip on this steering wheel, because this car can get away from you very quickly, and it takes no prisoners. So you got to be careful what you're doing when you're driving. And when you have an all-wheel drive car, it's very important to have a firm grip when it comes to this sort of stuff. Now, the thing on here, at the bottom of the steering wheel, is what Lamborghini called Anima. Anima is an acronym that they use to describe your different driving modes. So there's Strada for the road, Sports, and then Corsa for the track. So there's a few different parameters that are adjusted when you go from one driving mode to the next. One is the suspension. The suspension on this car, it's on most Huracans, but not all. It's called magnetorheological suspension. So basically what happens, it's adaptive dampening for the shock absorbers. This is actually invented by GM, believe it or not, in the early 2000s. Think of the fluid inside of your shock absorber that looks like a snow globe, okay? Now, You can alter the viscosity of the fluid inside your shock absorber by applying an electromagnet or altering a magnetic field around the shock absorber. So when you do that, all the things that are floating around the fluid kind of go to the sides of the shock absorber, thereby altering the viscosity of the fluid inside the shock absorber. So it can get stiff and it can get soft. It's one thing that changes when you change your driving mode. Another thing that changes is how your transmission behaves. When you're in Strada, you're gonna find that the car is in its most tamest setting. So it's gonna change gears a lot sooner. This car also has stop-start, so it can save you fuel and things like that. The exhaust doesn't get very loud. It's tailored towards comfort. Another thing that changes is your steering. So your steering feedback will change. And if you have Lamborghini dynamic steering, this car is not equipped with it, but some are. It'll alter the steering ratio. It's like turning a dial. Even with the base or the regular steering system, you're gonna be very impressed. But the LDS, Lamborghini dynamic steering, is a worthwhile upgrade in my opinion. How the all-wheel drive system torques vector and how your rear mechanical limited slip differential works. Mechanical is good. That's designed for abuse. Electronic limited slip differentials are cool, but I don't think they're as good as mechanical limited slip differentials. These are the things that change when you go from one driving mode to the next. One thing I forgot to mention that changes as well is your nannies or your driver's aids. So when you go into sport, the car will actually remind you in your instrument cluster that ESC is in sport. ESC is electronic stability control. So now it's going to allow a little bit of wheel slip. And if you go to Corsa, it's going to be a Corsa setting for that. It's going to allow even more wheel slip. The more crazy the mode you go in, the more awake you got to be when you're driving the car, because it can, like I said, it can get away from you very easily. So like I mentioned, the roof on this car is a rag top and it folds up really nicely and it kind of opens and closes within a reasonable amount of time. So we're going to demonstrate the roof for you now, and I'm going to stop in the middle just to show you a really interesting detail. So one thing I wanted to point out is, or at least show you, is exactly how little space we have to work with here. This is the rag top kind of half folded. Now this cover that goes over the rag top when it's down is all made of carbon fiber. You wouldn't know it by looking on the outside, but when you look at the patterning on the inside, you can see that. So we're just gonna put the roof fully down just to show you. Now you can kind of see that whole thing. It's almost like a beauty of mechanical engineering, seeing all these things work. A couple other interesting points with the Spider. You get a package that contains two of these with the Lamborghini logo on it. It's kind of got like a mesh. See the trapezoid? Now what these do is that these go right behind your headrest like this. And what this is designed to do is reduce kind of like air turbulence inside the car when you're driving with the top down. Another thing that helps is this rear window that I was telling you about, that it can kind of go up like this, and it doesn't move a lot, but believe me, it makes a difference when you're driving with the top down. Your wife will thank you because her hair will not get messed up as much. Notice these little cutouts that are in the cover for the rag top. So when you have a convertible, a safety feature that most cars employ in the case of a rollover are these kind of like explosive charges that are beneath here. This car has a few gyroscopes on board to help with driving dynamics, but they're also used for safety. So if this car thinks it's prone to roll over before it actually goes on its roof, these things blow and you have these pieces that kind of shoot up like this. Now the whole point of this is that when these shoot up and the car goes on its roof, it kind of adds an extra layer of protection or damage control, I should say, to the occupants when the car is on its roof. Okay, now the one convenient feature that the Huracan has that the Gallardo never did is the ability to open your frunk from the key. So you just press and hold this button. It's an electric actuator. Door kind of presents itself. There's a little handle here that you press in order to release the luggage compartment cover, and then you can kind of see what you have here. Tool kit, puncture kit. This is that package I was telling you that has those wind deflectors. Not a lot of space in here. Pretty much what you'd expect with a mid-engine car. Right now you can kind of see this trap door has been removed to expose the terminals on the battery, because every car that we have here we put on a trickle charger so the batteries don't die. They don't move a lot, they're not being driven a lot, and these batteries are very expensive to replace and hard to get at when they die as well. All this needs to come out in order to get at that battery. Washer fluid goes here. This is where the air gets sucked in for your heating and ventilation. This is where your brake fluid goes. When we get Lamborghinis in, I always look for the PPG sticker on the underside of the hood. That's this sticker right here. It tells you without having to guess exactly what the color is. So it says right there, Arancio Borealis. Okay, now I told you guys that this car has pretty much a muffler delete, which is a little obnoxious, but let's see what you think. Let's see what it sounds like. Now, people clearly had an appetite for this car because they sold over 20,000 Huracans throughout its 10-year life cycle, surpassing the Gallardo. What do you think? Is this a worthwhile successor? Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'm Nima from MBL Leasing. It wouldn't be fair for Lamborghini to give the SVJ treatment to the Aventador without doing something similar for its younger sibling, the Lamborghini Huracan. I'm Nima from MBL Leasing, and this is a 2022 Lamborghini Huracan STO. So what does STO stand for? STO stands for Super Trofeo Omologata, which is Italian, basically denoting the fact that this car was made for homologation in order to compete in the GT3 racing class. Right off the hop, you can tell that there's a lot of differences with this car over and above your standard Huracan. So we're gonna start here at the front end. Everything about this car is extremely track oriented, even more so than the SVJ. Everything is designed for competition. In fact, it only fulfills the most basic legal requirements in order to be driven on the street. It sucks in the cold and it sucks in the wet. You only need nice weather to drive this car in. Once we get down here, you can see there's a lot of aerodynamic features down here. You have all your radiators and stuff back here that are protected with the plastic grille over top because you're probably going to be hitting a lot of debris coming at you on the track. This whole front end looks very similar to what you have on a normal Huracan, but it's not. It's actually all one piece of carbon fiber. So let's just open it up so I can show you what I mean. Now, although it shares the same basic shape as a regular Huracan, there's some very important differences up here. Car actually sucks in air through that main air dam and brings it up through here and expels it out the hood. This is to create less drag and make the car more aerodynamic and provide more downforce. Here you can see that this whole front clip is all made of one piece of carbon fiber. And this is all done to accommodate those extra aerodynamic features I was telling you about. So where you would normally have a decently sized front trunk for a Huracan, all you have is this little box right here. This is the extent of your front storage. So with the hood in this position, you can see that this is all one piece. Again, I told you it's done for aerodynamics and things like that, but it also makes the car extremely light. You don't have separate fenders and a hood and a bumper when it's all one piece, less welds, things like that. So even though this is an Huracan STO, it shares very few parts with a standard Huracan. Headlights are one, the doors are another, the mirrors are another. Beyond that, everything is completely different. So we'll start over here. Your front wheels here have these nice carbon fiber louvers that are built into your fenders, which are actually attached to your hood that I was just showing you. So this helps with less drag and aerodynamics. Really nice touch too. When we get down here, a lot of important stuff here. These wheels are specific to the STO. They're made of magnesium, okay? So they're extra durable and they're extra light. They're center locking wheels. That's something that's part and parcel to a race car. Now, these carbon ceramic brakes may look a lot like the ones you get on a standard Huracan, but they're not. It's a revised carbon ceramic braking system by Brembo called CCMRs that operate better with heat dissipation and brake fade, all designed for the track. So when you have CCMR, a braking system by Brembo can be used on the street and the track, and they're basically designed to be able to carry more punishment. The internal venting is different, and there's a lot of other smaller details that make them able to withstand more abuse, which is really what you're doing to this car. One convenient feature that this car has, which is pretty much just for the street, is your front axle lift. You don't want to damage that front bumper. Very expensive to replace, so it's a really nice feature to help you get in and out of driveways and things like that. The tire on this car. Now, normally Lamborghini relies on Pirelli in order to make tires for their cars. So this tire is made by Bridgestone. It's a Bridgestone Potenza, and it's got the Lamborghini logo on it, so it was designed specifically for this car. This tire is designed to shine on the track and basically fulfill the minimum requirements to be driven on the street. They're quieter and their compound is slightly different. Not really sure why they didn't go with Pirelli on this one, but it really helps this car on a circuit. Now this car is a 22, and these decals that you see on the car are all from the factory at Lamborghini. Being a 22, it was probably ordered in 21, which was kind of a COVID year. So it was during a time when some options weren't available or some options were extremely limited. So I know that when this particular car was ordered, it was lucky in order to be able to get these decals. You're gonna see a lot of Huracan STOs out there that don't have any of these decals. I think it actually looked kind of slick with no decals, but the fact that they were so hard to get at the time as a factory option kind of make this car a little bit more special. This car is a matte black color. This car is covered in PPF to protect that paint, because when you scratch matte paint, there's no buffing, there's no polishing, no blending or anything. You have to repaint that panel. So I would encourage anyone who has matte paint on any car to get full PPF to make it more scratch resistant. Once you start coming towards the back here, you're gonna see an array of vents, okay? Now this one here actually directs air through to a hose to cool your rear brakes. These inlets here, these go into the intake for one of your cylinder banks, the other one being on the other side obviously. And just on the other side of this vent that collects air is a heat exchanger. So all the wheels are 20-inch. You have a different profile back here. You have 305 tires back here, but the one interesting thing about the STO is it's the most powerful version you can get, 631 horsepower, but it's rear-wheel drive. Now that's done for a couple reasons. When you're on a circuit, rear-wheel drive can really help. It also helps weight reduction. This car is actually 95 pounds lighter than the Huracan Performante, and the Huracan Performante was about 100 pounds lighter than the standard Huracan. This really helps on a circuit when it comes to weight and things like that, but when you have a car that's rear-wheel drive, sometimes things can get a little hairy. So a way to keep the car in control and be a little bit more poised in certain corners is by offering rear-wheel steering, and that's a really nice feature that this STO has. So it's not a whole lot of degrees, but just enough to help keep the car planted. Now with this particular STO, a lot of trim pieces are highlighted in a gloss red. So the tips of your spoilers that kind of fold in at the bottom, your rear diffuser, your front splitter, and your side skirt extensions. This is all for ground effects, downforce, aerodynamics, things like that. But the one thing that demands attention on this car is this snorkel up here. Now, this being a track-focused car, you don't have a regular engine cover that has glass. This is all one-piece carbon fiber, requires a special key in order to unlock and be completely removed in order to work on the engine and whatnot. Now, the one thing that I think is interesting is that this appears to be an air intake snorkel. So this would take air that's rushing over the top of the car and almost force it into the engine. But this particular snorkel is not connected to the air intake system. Your air intake inlets are actually on the sides. So I'm not sure what purpose this serves. I think it looks amazing. Maybe in the comments you guys can help me figure out what the purpose of this is. All I can figure out is that maybe it helps cool the engine because it takes air from the outside, forces it into the engine, and there's lots of openings at the back of the engine bay in order to dispel all that hot air. That's what I think it is, but if you guys think otherwise, please let me know. This spoiler is a fixed spoiler, but it does have some mechanical adjustment. In the SVJ video for the Aventador, I went over Lamborghini's ALA system, their active aerodynamics. Now in GT3 racing class, active aerodynamics are not allowed to be used. You can have adjustable aerodynamics, but it can't be active. The rear spoiler on this has a few settings that you need a special key in order to adjust its angle. Now, this is really important depending on what circuit that you're on. Some circuits have more straightaways, some circuits have more curves. And Lamborghini even understands that not everything happens in a straight line. Races are won in the corners. So depending on how the racetrack is set up with the elevation, the bends, the apexes, and things like that, every track is different. So every track requires specific adjustment in order to make the car shine the most on that particular circuit. This kind of has like a gooseneck spoiler here. These are made of steel that are connected to the body, and the spoiler almost hangs off of it. This spoiler has a spoiler. This is another spoiler attached to the main spoiler, and these winglets also help keep the air contained. This snorkel that we were pointing out earlier also has this vertical fin attached to it that's made of carbon fiber. So the purpose of this is to help the car stay more composed in a bend. So it kind of prevents air from going side to side on the back of the car when you're at speed, and basically helps stability in a corner. That's the purpose of it. So now that we're at the back end of the Huracan, you can see that everything has a purpose and looks extra wild. All the heat shields that surround the exhaust system. You'll notice there's a lot of venting back here. You have these holes where you can see your tire tread. You have this nice grill here right behind your exhaust system. You have vents here beneath your third brake light. It's fully open right beneath your tail lights. This is all designed to expel heat from the engine bay, because when this car is at the limit, it develops a lot of heat, and on the track, heat is the enemy. So you need a lot of ways to kind of dispel that using the air that's already flowing around the car. and over the car. The floor or the underside of this car is actually different. It's still completely flat like a normal Huracan, but it's actually optimized for airflow. Another dead giveaway that you're looking at a Huracan is the fenders. So the fender here, which is actually built into the hood, has these fins. This is all to direct air. It's probably most pronounced on your rear fender, which is normally very smooth, but you have this nice fin here that kind of helps the car cut through the air, but namely to direct air into these intakes. Even the opening here where it kind of tapers out like this kind of increases airflow to those intakes to kind of force air into them. The faster you go, the better that they work, the more efficient they are. So the STO comes with this special key that's actually stored right by your left leg in the driver footwell, and you need that in order to open these mechanisms that allow you to open that front clamshell hood that I was showing you, and also to pull this engine cover off. Very pretty engine bay in this car. Once we have the engine cover off, it kind of exposes all the fun stuff in here. So you have this crossbar for rigidity. The Performante and the STO models, they all get this really nice valve cover. Standard Huracans, I'm pretty sure it's just black, but I think it's a really nice touch. A couple things I can notice off the hopping in here is that you have a revised intake system. It takes in air a similar way that a Huracan does, but these look like new air boxes to me. And I would imagine that these air boxes are bigger in order to accommodate a larger volume of air and probably a slightly larger or differently designed air filter. Now, when you have a naturally aspirated engine, there's only so many things you can do to increase power. This engine in its weakest form is probably 580 horsepower. In its strongest form is 630 to 640. The only other advantage that these cars have would be weight and aerodynamics in order to increase their capability. So the STO is rated at about, I believe, 631 horsepower. But it's got the strongest aero of any of the other Huracans in the lineup, just over the Performante, which on its own is a very well designed car in terms of aerodynamics and power. It has almost 40% less drag and just over 50% more downforce. So these numbers, they all really make a difference when you're on the track, which is where this car is meant to be. A couple of the things that I wanted to point out back here that I think are really important. Now, when the Huracan was first introduced, a lot of people thought that the design was actually a little bit too calm, not crazy enough. And one thing that all Lambos have that garner a lot of attention is the spoiler. But Lamborghini, when they introduced the Huracan in 2014 as a 2015 car, they said the spoiler is integrated into the bodywork. We're going to show you a shot of a standard Huracan and how the back end kind of has the spoiler that's built in. It's not active, doesn't move, but still provides significant downforce. Now, when it comes to the STO, it still has that, but even more. This part that comes off of your rear fender sticks out even more and comes to even more of a point. Beneath this giant spoiler, you get the same treatment relative to a regular Huracan, just more, and it comes out like it's an extra wing. So right now, when you're looking at this thing, it almost has 3 wings. 1, 2, 3. So right when you hop in here, a lot of the things that you look at just scream, let's race. The steering wheel in an STO is a slightly different shape and it's stitched in Alcantara. This particular one has red stitching here. This is all selectable when you're configuring the car. The whole dash is in Alcantara as well, with little red leather accents in the middles of the seats where your armrest is and your little door grips. So these door grips, there's no door handles anymore. Your door card is all one piece of carbon fiber. This is done in matte. I think it looks really nice. The way that you open your door is you pull this little tether that actuates your door, and the way you close it is just by pulling this door pull right there. That's all done for lightness. Full Alcantara roof liner. The really nice part about these STOs are the seats. Now, these are all carbon fiber. Unlike the SVJ, they're fully mechanical. This allows you to sit lower. They're extremely bolstered. The only materials used to make these are carbon fiber and Alcantara. A little bit of leather, just for some design. You have this big lever that goes in between your legs. It says scancio on it, which is Italian for release. So when you do this, you can move the seat forward and back. I've said before, when you have mechanical seats, you don't need electric motors to adjust the seat, so the seat can sit lower and the car is lighter, which is a big deal when it comes to a car that you're making that it's designed for the track. No carpets really. You kind of have this kind of mats, but they're made of aluminum that go over the floor carpeting. Not as much exposed carbon as there is in the Aventador, but still very minimal design. So this is an option, believe it or not. It got the cup holder option. So at least you have somewhere to put your coffee or a water bottle or I don't know what. This isn't even all that deep. It's almost just like to do it to say that they offer it. With the STO, it has the same infotainment that was introduced with the Huracan Evo, which was much needed. So now you have, it's almost kind of like a tablet with a lot of touch sensitive buttons. You can use this to control your climate, your music, your navigation, and things like that. So you really have just two screens in this car, your digital instrument cluster and this. And you can take a lot of the information that is shown to you on your central screen here and have that information to be transposed into your instrument cluster. You have your traditional Huracan, or Lamborghini start-stop button. That's a nice feature. Hope they never get rid of that. On the steering wheel, this is where you do all your drive adjustments or your drive mode adjustments. So there's three: STO, Trofeo, and Pioggia. Pioggia is rain. So that's the rain setting. Trofeo, which is Italian for trophy, which kind of implies racing and things like that. That's probably the most aggressive one. And STO, believe it or not, is actually like your most ordinary setting, probably your tamest setting that you can have in this car. So things that change when you do that is your adjustable dampening on your suspension and the manner with which that the car changes gears. The rear differential is different in STOs than they are in normal Huracans. It vectors torque differently and basically is able to preload each side like during turn-in. So the car has a lot of sensors and whatnot that help you determine that, and this all helps you kind of get out of those turns a little bit better. It does it extremely well considering it's a rear-wheel drive car. Like, you can slide these cars pretty nicely, although on a circuit sliding doesn't really help. My point is, it does a really good job of putting all of the power, all 631 horsepower, down to those two wheels and transmitting that power to the pavement in an efficient way without just scrubbing your tires. All right, let's hear it. We didn't have a lot of time today, and I feel like I hardly scratched the surface when it comes to highlighting all the important details that make this STO special. If you have any other questions about the car, feel free to email me, nima@mvl.ca. Don't forget to like and subscribe. The V12 to Lamborghini is like what pen is to paper, and they really take their time when they're making these cars. I'm Nima from MVL Leasing, and this is a 2015 Lamborghini Aventador Roadster. If you guys have any questions about the cars that we're shooting, my email's in the description. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. The Aventador was introduced in February of 2011 at the Geneva Motor Show, and it was to replace the Murcielago. So it had to be a V12 two-seater, and that's when they introduced the car. Now, even at the Geneva Auto Show, they managed to sell 12 cars just from that show, and they wanted to outsell the Murcielago, just like the Murcielago wanted to outsell the Countach. They have to keep selling more cars. When they introduced this car, it really kind of took the world by storm because of all the aggressive styling. The car was actually designed by Filippo Perini, and they started production in 2011, and these cars tend to have roughly 10-year life cycles. So they made this car from 2012 model year until 2022 model year. So let's just get some numbers out of the way. Car is, they call it Aventador LP 700-4. LP as in longitudinal, that's the positioning of the engine. Posterior, engine's behind the occupants. 700 PS, European horsepower measurement. 690 horsepower, brake horsepower. -4, all-wheel drive. 0 to 60 in 2.9 seconds. Top speed of 217 miles an hour. People have achieved more even with the standard car. Despite the fact that it's a convertible and about 110 pounds heavier than the coupe, it can still achieve those top speeds without breaking a sweat. The car takes a lot of styling cues from aircraft design. So if you've seen the F-22 Raptor, you're going to notice a lot of design cues that the Aventador shares with the F-22 Raptor. So you can tell the car has a lot of straight and sharp lines. It's supposed to look really futuristic. Another game we can play with this car, or any Aventador for that matter, is trying to see how many hexagons you can find throughout the design. So as we're going to go through the car, I'm just going to point them out. This is probably the most intimidating angle of the Aventador. These are probably my favorite headlights I've ever seen fit to a car, and they were started by the Gallardo LP560 from 09 to 14, and then when they introduced the Aventador, it had the same Y formation in the headlights. When you kind of see this in the distance, all you see is these two lights that are set far apart and very close to the ground, so you know that a mean car is rolling up on you or seeing it in your rearview mirror. Very intimidating. I love it. Like I said, A lot of sharp angles. And the one thing that is common to a lot of Lamborghinis, especially like their mid-engine cars, is that you can almost draw a straight line from the crest on the front bumper right to the top of the roof. It always has this really wedge design. So like I said with the SVJ, it looks like it's breaking the speed limit even when it's parked. Now up here, you have a few air inlets that kind of house a couple of radiators that help cool the engine. It's a 6.5 liter V12, naturally aspirated. You still do have luggage compartment in here, but with the Roadster, it's not a retractable roof. You need to pluck off these panels in a certain order and they kind of get filed into your frunk over here. So when you have the roof off, your frunk is full. You have maybe room for a box of Tic Tacs, but the rest of the storage would all be inside and there isn't a lot. So, but small price to pay for driving a beast like this. Now the name of this color is called Blue Nethans. Nethans is a mythological reference to the god of water. A lot of layers in this paint. Paint is by PPG. It kind of looks like the water that you would see on like a really nice paradise island or vacation spot or something like that. It really pops. I really like it a lot. Let's make our way over to the side here. These wheels were introduced with the Roadster. Lamborghini calls them Dione wheels, D-I-O-N-E. 20-inch in the front, 21-inch in the back. They're forged wheels and they're made by a company called APP Tech. AppTech is actually a division of a company called Ronal. Ronal is an OEM wheel manufacturer and they make wheels for anyone from BMW, Audi, Rolls-Royce, any company that you can think of, all based in Italy. Really nice wheel. Pirelli tires. Lamborghini is very friendly with Pirelli, or at least they were at this time. So you'll see a lot of their cars fit with these tires. These are 265s in the front and I think they are 335s or 325s in the back. Big wheel in the back. Any V12 car the Lamborghini has made has always been an extremely fat wheel. And it looks intimidating even from the back with how much rubber this thing lays down. Really good for the street, really good for performance. Wear rating isn't terrible, but you know, small price to pay when you have this level of performance. Carbon ceramic braking system. Whoever spec'd this car got one with the yellow calipers. I believe these calipers are made by Brembo. They're 6-piston calipers. Your equivalent Huracan or Gallardo are actually a lot smaller by comparison. So this car needs to take wide turns in order to accommodate it because it's both wide and long. The wheelbase is long and the track is also wide. As we come down the side here, you can see a lot of aero, and none of it is just for style's sake. All of it serves a function. So in your side skirt here, you actually have some ventilation here that takes some air out of your wheel wells. And then when we come to the back here, you can see these huge radiators. Now the engine's in the middle. And when you have the issue with any mid-engine car is heat soaking, because you don't have, the engine is not in the front and exposed to any of the air that is rushing at the car. So they have to take lots of measures in order to feed the engine air and expel the heat and feed all the heat exchangers. You wouldn't know unless you got up close, but this actually juts in quite a bit in order to house a much larger radiator. You can see the hexagon in this shape. Right? There's all of these all over the place. And even in the grille itself, the patterning in the grille has this same hexagonal theme going on. Just in front of this heat exchanger is actually your door handle. So in here, there's a little rubber strip that you press with an electronic actuator. When you do that, these door pistons help the doors go up on their own. Now, when you have a Roadster, when you have any convertible, one issue that you have is the car will have less rigidity because you don't have a fixed roof. So you need to accommodate for that in other ways in order to keep that chassis just as stiff. So one way that they do that with the Aventador is that you can't see it because it's all underneath all the cladding, but there's kind of like these rails that connect the back of the car to the front of the car right on the edge of beneath the door sill. Those are actually a lot thicker. It's not that much of a weight disadvantage, only about 110 pounds. It doesn't gain that much weight from becoming a convertible. Another issue that you have when you have a convertible is something called cowl shake. So this would be the cowl or the window frame. And sometimes when you're in a regular convertible car, like I would say a BMW convertible, let's say you drive over some train tracks or you go over some bumps, you can see the cowl kind of shake because it doesn't have any of those connections to the rest of the car. Not with the Aventador. You can go over any bumps and stuff like that and the cowl stays perfectly still. So they did a really good job of increasing the rigidity to make up for the fact that it doesn't have a fixed roof. You have these holes right here. These actually feed feed the engine air intakes. So there's vents everywhere, and a lot of the styling is taken from the F-22 Raptor. And it's, believe it or not, this car actually has a full carbon fiber monocoque design. It was the cheapest car that had a carbon fiber monocoque. Lamborghini has actually worked with Boeing to develop carbon fiber. And I don't doubt that maybe some of the things that they learned in that relationship were applied to this car. When you have a carbon fiber monocoque, you need a mold. And when you have a mold is only good for a certain amount of chassis to make. So Lamborghini had 8 molds in order to build the monocoque for the Aventador, all good for about 500 monocoques each. So they actually ended up needing to make more because they ended up selling more Aventadors than they thought they could. But that's part of the process. And once you get that mold, it's only good for about 500 monocoques. When we come back closer to the back of the car here, you're going to see a little bit more ventilation that comes from underneath the side skirt and kind of expels air outside of this wheel. Now, this particular car is all-wheel drive. But in 2016, when they introduced the Aventador S, they introduced rear-wheel steering, which was probably the best upgrade that one could do to this car. This one doesn't have it, but it still handles really nice. This rear carbon ceramic brake is bigger than the front brakes of a lot of performance cars. And again, all done by Brembo, all carbon ceramic brakes have a very long service life. To change all the brakes, I haven't had to do one of those yet, but it can get really expensive. But the mileage that would be on the car to get this brake job done would probably be a lot, depending on how hard you're beating on the car. I thought the rear wheel was a 335, it's actually a 355. Some of the widest tires ever fit to a production car. The one thing that kind of demands the most attention with these Aventador Roadsters is kind of the engine cover. So this is different than it's specific to a Roadster, and sometimes when you have like when it comes to the McLaren 600 LT that we shot, Ferrari F8, all these other Spyders, the engine is always covered. There's nothing ever showing. They have some vents and stuff like that kind of help the engine dispel heat. The Aventador Roadster did a really good job of showing off this engine. You have a lot more hexagons back here. You have 4 sheets of glass that kind of cover and are kind of stacked on top of one another. Now, the one cool thing about this engine bay is the car itself has push rod suspension. Push rod suspension is kind of like F1 stuff. So it's not like a regular car where you have your shock absorber and your spring around it like this and almost situated vertically. They're horizontal. They do this because it would take up less space in your wheel well, and it's a little bit more performance oriented. With this Aventador or any Aventador, you can actually choose the color of your springs. The springs are shown right in the engine bay here. Whoever designed this car or spec'd out this car wanted to get them done in yellow. I think it's a nice little touch. It goes with the blue and it matches the brake calipers. So the back of the Aventador, I like this car from all angles. There's not one angle of this car that I think looks ugly. The tail lights are really nice. They kind of have these, they're kind of shaped like arrows. These are the types of lights that, like, when you see these, it's like unmistakable. Like, that's an Aventador. They did a really good job with these lights, and you see some of these design elements that were taken from aircrafts too. Big vents down here that kind of hide more radiators back there. This spoiler is retractable. You have manual control over it in most Aventador models, or you can just let the car do its thing. So when you achieve or exceed certain speeds, it'll go up. It has 3 positions, down, which is flush, and then 1 level, and then level 2. So the higher it goes, the more downforce you get. Sometimes the car will decide, depending on what speed you're going to, how high this is going to be deployed. It's all motorized and has a nice third brake light that's built in right here. So even when it's flush, the brake light is perfectly visible. You have this sticker here that kind of warns you in 2 different languages to say caution, high temperature. That's because the exhaust system is just beneath this spoiler. The exhaust system it sounds really good, even in stock form. We're gonna hear this car when we take it out for a bit. This is your exhaust outlets. Doesn't look like it, but you actually have 4 pipes that are all staggered or angle cut inside this one trim piece for your exhaust. Again, more hexagons. This kind of looks like the afterburner or the exhaust from a fighter jet, and it looks really good, kind of ties in the back end. Because if I saw too many pipes here, I think it would look a little bit busy. But they did a really good job of kind of tidying it up with this nice exhaust finisher. Lamborghini offers a lot of different exhaust systems too. Well, they offer you the standard exhaust, which I think is loud enough. And they also offer a Lamborghini race exhaust, and they offer this as an original accessory. It doesn't come from the factory, but it's a nice piece, and I've heard this exhaust on other cars before, and it sounds just insane. The rear diffuser doesn't look too busy. You have some fins there that all kind of help direct air underneath the car and expel it out properly. Underneath this car is all carbon fiber panels. There's not one part that's really exposed to the bottom of the engine, and this is all done for aerodynamics, help the car kind of suck to the ground. A couple other quick things I just wanted to point out. You have a really nice rear view camera here, and you need it because the window to look out of to reverse is quite small. Something that everyone is kind of expects from a V12 Lamborghini. Looking behind you is very difficult to do, but you know what they say, you don't win races by looking in the rear view mirror. So on top of the tail lights and just beneath your third brake light here, there's all these grills. Now these are exposed what's underneath for a reason, and that's really just all for heat dissipation. Because when you have a car like this, heat is the enemy, and an engine like this generates a lot of that heat. So I'm just gonna open the engine cover and we can take a look at what's underneath. Now this engine cover is actually pretty light. The car makes extensive use of carbon fiber, but one thing that Lamborghini has also done is developed other forms of high strength plastic, like the front fenders, for example. These are not all the same material, but it just goes to show you how far they're willing to go in order to create materials for different purposes. The engine cover is one example. It gets most of its weight from these pieces of glass here. So now that we're under here, we can kind of get an idea as to what we have. These are the rear suspension that I was telling you about that is push rod. They're made by a company called Öhlins. I believe it's a Dutch company. When it comes to suspension, these guys know what they're doing, believe me. You have these adjustable collars on your shock absorber, or sorry, on your, looks like your spring seat. These cars all have adjustable suspension from the factory. So what some guys do when they get these Aventadors is they dump them right to the ground. Looks good for a little bit, but it's extremely harsh on your suspension, ruins your ride, and only betters your handling in certain situations. If you're streeting the car and stuff like that, it's not good, but at least you have this sort of adjustment, because not all cars come with this sort of thing. But cars like this Aventador, you know, most Ferrari mid-engine cars, they all have adjustable suspension from the factory, which is really nice because if you want to get that look that you're after, kill a little bit of wheel gap, or if you spend some time at the track and you want to be able to carve corners a certain way, depending on whatever car you're driving, it's a nice feature to have. You see a lot of bracing in here. So when you have a mid-engine car, you got to be able to keep the chassis stiff. You have one bar that goes across the back here, and this is what Lamborghini calls the X-brace. This one is just made in satin black paint. I've seen these made of carbon fiber, and they look really, really good. On the engine cover, it says V12, and it says Ordine di Accensione. That means firing order. So this tells you what cylinders fire in what order, all cylinders 1 through 12. You change the firing order, you change the sound of the engine. So whoever decided on this firing order deserves an award because the engine sounds great at any rev. Big engine cover, you see 4 big things going into it, okay? These are your mass airflow sensors. Your filters are hidden back here, but this is how the air is shot into the engine. This is for your motor oil. The car measures its own, has its own dipstick. So all you do is lift this out and you can see exactly how much oil you need to add. Now, changing oil on an Aventador is not like changing oil on a regular car because when you put oil in a car like this, you need to put the oil in first, then let it get to temperature, measure it again, and adjust. It's not like just pulling a drain plug and letting all the oil fall out, or come out and then just topping it off with whatever manufacturer says. It's kind of a balancing act, and it's really important. You have dry sump lubrication. So that unit is just beneath this grill right here. Everything behind that is, you see like this stuff that looks like aluminum foil. This is a heat shield to keep that hot muffler from making the heat even a worse problem than it already is in the engine bay. There's a lot of problems that come with heat, and when you have a mid-engine car like this, I've said this before, they will sit in traffic, they can sit in traffic, but they don't like it. This thing needs to be in motion, because if all the heat just collects in here, it doesn't do much, it doesn't do well for your suspension, it doesn't really do good for anything. A lot of it, they have resistance to this sort of stuff, but at the end of the day, it's still kind of wearing. This car's a 15, so it's been on the road for about 10 years. And all that paint has kind of flaked off. It still looks good, but it's just an example as to how the heat kind of takes a toll on the components that are in here. And this is the main reason why you have so much stuff like this all these openings to help kind of dissipate this heat when the car's in motion. This being a roadster, my favorite part, and most roadsters, they do this with like the McLaren, the Ferraris and stuff. When you have the top closed, you have a little access window that's behind the occupants. Now with this car, and like those other cars, this is motorized, or this is power, so it can go up and down. So when you have the roof up, you can have all the windows up and you can have that little window open and just listen to this engine howl. One of my favorite features. Funnest part about owning a Lamborghini is being able to open these doors, because it's nice to whoever's getting in the car, and it's nice to whoever's watching too. Very easy to get in the car with these new scissor doors, like the Murcielago and Diablo. These doors went up directly. Okay, this door kind of goes up and it kind of fans out a little bit. I think it's cool because when these doors are open, it kind of looks like wings. It's a nice touch, and they did that because to make it easier to get in and out of the car. So, works. Every time you fire up the car, you get a nice Lamborghini logo on your nav screen here. This is a repurposed Audi system. There's a lot of Audi parts in here, like the buttons, they make that Audi click. Don't love that, but doesn't matter. Audi owns the whole brand anyway, so it's not a terrible thing. Just a kind of a reminder of that. This isn't great. They're not winning any awards here. They weren't winning any awards in 2015, and they're certainly not winning any awards now for the interface when it comes to this thing. But who cares? Because the thing that I care about the most is the pleasure of driving the car. I'm not plugging in navigation here to figure out where I'm going. I would imagine if you're going to Lamborghini, you get into a car, you know where you're going. You don't need to rely on something like this. More hexagons in here. You'll notice that the frame of your screen has hexagonal shape. Your instrument cluster has a hexagonal shape. The airbag cover, lots of that. Not my favorite interior color, but since it's a roadster, I would imagine this car is going to be driven with the top down a lot more. Considering how long it takes to pluck off these roof panels and put them in the front, you're probably going to keep them in there. With the sun beaming down on this, it's easier or not as hot getting back on this seat relative to, say, a black interior. Kind of like that Rolls-Royce Dawn that we were shooting the last time. Kind of nice when you have a convertible. Now this car has two tones on the inside. So one is the beige leather and one is the black leather. The dashboard is black leather, and this is a wise choice because the lighter the material is on your dashboard, the more it reflects on your windscreen. And this can be kind of distracting when you're driving when, you know, in really sunny weather. The windshield is huge, but from where I'm sitting, it doesn't look like it because it's just on such an angle like this. In fact, the distance between the top of the steering wheel and the top of the wind frame is probably, this to me is probably 4 or 5 inches, less than 5 inches. I'm not complaining, but it's just cool because when you see the car from the outside relative to being behind the wheel, it looks a lot different, but I wouldn't have it any other way. Steering wheel feels nice. This leather is perforated on the hand grips, and I like the way that the thumb rests feel, and you can kind of get a really good grip on this. And you need it because I mentioned to you before with other all-wheel drive cars, it's really good if you have a firm grip on the wheel, because when a car like that kind of slides a bit, it's kind of hard to bring it back, and you got to be awake when you're driving a car like that. So my favorite part of the interior is the digital instrument cluster. The tach is dead center where it should be. Tach goes to 9,000 RPM and the car redlines at, I think, 8,000. Like you can actually get it there or very close to it. All of your information relating to your water or oil pressure, oil temperature, fuel, water temperature, these are all just on the outside of your tachometer, which is very important information when it comes to whatever car you're driving. You have 2 small TFT screens on each side of your instrument cluster, and these show different information. So on the left, it'll show you the time, the date, the temperature, the music you're listening to, and stuff like that. On the right, it'll show you what your rear wing is doing. So it shows a picture of a wing and whether it's going up or down. You also have a front lift kit in this car, which is in this button array right here. So this is your power window switch. This is your front lift kit. You press this, there's going to be an image that's going to pop up in your instrument cluster showing a silhouette of a yellow Lamborghini and it pointing upwards. You gain about an inch or 2 of ground clearance when you hit that. And you need it because some of the roads that we have here are absolutely brutal and some driveways aren't nice either. Standard feature. Never seen an Aventador without that. Most cars like this should have this in my opinion. I like this tack because it looks extremely futuristic and kind of meets all the design language that Lamborghini was trying to do when they designed this car. It's really fun watching this needle dance, and I think it looks really sharp. Aventadors, when they were revised for 2017, in 2016 as a 2017 model year car, the instrument cluster was changed as well, and it all became one big digital screen. The tack also goes to 10 in those cars, whereas the tack only goes to 9 in this one. But believe me, with 12 cylinders and this much revs, you're gonna have plenty of fun. Don't worry about that. You have a lot of other stuff that's normal for a car where you kind of got to find a place to put all these buttons. So there's a little button panel that's right above my left knee here, which has mostly to do with lighting and stuff like that. So this is how I can brighten or dim my instrument cluster. This is how I can activate the automatic headlamp feature, so if it gets dark, the lights just turn on. I love driving this car with no headlights on, because then all you see is that Y signal, or that Y formation in the headlights, and to me that's the meanest look. I'd probably drive it like that until dusk. I only put on those headlights when I have to. And you have a rear fog light button. This is a European thing. All it does really just makes one tail light a little bit brighter than the other. No one ever uses it here. Don't even know why they put it in. The steering wheel is tilting and telescopic. You just pull this little scoopy type handle underneath here. Steering wheel can come in and out, up and down. I always put the steering wheel as far away as possible from me, and I try to position it in such a way where it's not obstructing the tachometer. On your center console here, I like the way it looks. They use really nice materials for it. This looks like aircraft aluminum. It's not too busy. The main things that I use here anytime I hop into an Aventador is your start and stop button, and maybe the climate control, but I rarely ever operate any of this stuff, but I think they laid it out all nicely. Again, bordered with a hexagonal shape and things like that. This is your parking brake, and this is the button that you press in order to activate if you want manual control over what your spoiler's doing. This is to flip it into reverse. When you flip it into reverse, your display here shows what's behind you from that camera I was pointing out earlier. But my favorite button on here next to the start button is the M button, because when you press this, now you are in charge of banging through these gears. These shift levers are steering column mounted, all crafted from a single piece of aluminum. I like how tall they are, so that way if I'm in a bend, it's easier to flick these paddles. They're nice and sharp, they're hexagonal in shape, or have hexagonal design hues, and they they feel really nice when you flick these paddles. Some cars that have paddle shifters, you flick them and they almost sound like a C7 Corvette, for example. I remember when we got one of those in years ago. It was even a Z06, and it was automatic on the shift paddles. They're made of plastic, and they sound like a beer can crinkling every time you hit them. It's not very nice and felt very cheap. These ones feel amazing, and they look good too. There's not a whole lot of storage in here. In fact, there's no door pockets. There isn't even a parcel shelf that I can put my stuff. But the one thing that they have is this little cubby hole here. The little bits of storage that they did provide you in here, they kind of did it as a little bit of a joke. This glove box is not very big at all. It doesn't really fit that much stuff. It's even kind of crowded by your media cables if you want to use a different device in order to play, like iPod, which nobody uses. Just another example of a redundant feature that this car has that nobody needs. When you look back here, there's a couple cubbies that you can kind of hide, I don't know, a can of pop, water bottle, but there isn't even a shelf or anything, or any straps I can use to tie anything down. But you know what? Who cares? Because it's just an occasion to drive the car. I'm not going on a trip, you know what I mean? So it's not a huge deal. The way you open these scissor doors is actually kind of neat too, because it's kind of built into this panel that's built into the door sill. And when the car, when it's on, there's actually a little light there that kind of reminds you where to stick your finger. So you kind of stick your finger through this little panel and you pull this, and you use your elbow just to lift the car up like that. And it's got these pistons that, kind of do they do all the work for you. All you got to do is just kind of nudge it in that direction. I like these Aventador nameplates that they put on the door sill too, because this font that they use for this is kind of carried on throughout the car and through all the marketing material for this car when it had come out, and it's really sharp. And I think they took some inspiration from fighter jets. The floor mats in this car are kind of nice. They look like they're Alcantara and like a little bit of plastic at the top that has a carbon fiber pattern. It's not real carbon fiber, just the patterning. But it's got blue embroidery for the bowl and for the Lamborghini script, and blue stitching along the edge. So it's all deviated stitch. The leather on the interior of this car is what Lamborghini calls Q Sutura. Q Sutura pretty much, when you see this diamond or this quilted pattern, it's kind of a reference to that. So the seats are stitched with a black stitch, and the seats themselves are beige. Even your black dash has the beige stitch, so it kind of ties everything in really nicely. That quilted leather pattern is carried onto the firewall here, and I think it's a nice luxurious touch. Okay, so every time you fire up an Aventador, you gotta let the engine get to temp. And when the engine gets to temp, when you put it into the different driving modes, this is when your exhaust kind of changes note. If you do it on a cold start, it's not gonna work. You gotta wait till the engine warms up. So right now it's in Strada, engine's warm. I'm just gonna throw it into Sport. You could hear the valves open, and now the car starts to have like a little bit of a rumble. Sport is probably my favorite setting because it's not as crazy as Corsa and not as soft as Strada. It's pretty much like a good balance. One thing that you get with an Aventador Roadster is the windows are a little bit different, probably because the window opening is shaped a little bit different, but it looks like the edge of the window looks like a katana. It almost looks like a sword blade. That's one thing I really liked, and you don't get it on the coupes for some reason. All right, let's have some fun. I love the downshifts. Yeah. So it's a 7-speed transmission. It's made by Graziano. These guys know what they're doing, and it's what Lamborghini calls ISR, independent shift rod, single clutch. Honestly, everyone is all crazy about double clutch, and double clutch is nice, but like I told you with the SVJ, every time you decelerate in this car, you kind of get this burble. That's stock. I love it. Anyway, transmission. So it's like a robotized manual. So it's got 7 gears, and every time you flick a paddle, the car actuates a clutch or presses a clutch, uses a clutch to actuate a gear. Okay. Now the reason why they couldn't do a double clutch is because you can't make a double clutch transmission and make it all-wheel drive and have it deal with the punishment that this engine kind of puts out. I honestly, I don't mind. Like, this car still shifts fast. Like, you don't get 0 to 60 in 2.9 by having a crappy transmission. You know, I still like it. And it's almost like every time you go to change a gear, the car kind of like takes a deep breath and kind of gives her again. I like it. You know, like the double clutch in the Huracan is a very nice transmission. It's just the gear changes are instantaneous. With this, it's just, I don't know, adds a bit more drama when, you know, if you're driving an Aventador, chances are you want some drama. Car's an attention getter, that's for sure. The engine in this car has like a howl. It howls. Especially if you're somewhere where the sound kind of bounces off the buildings beside you, you can hear it coming down the street, and it's a sound that you like. It sounds fantastic and very unmistakable. It's not like, oh, it's just a random V12. Like, no, that's an Aventador. The only way you might confuse it is if you hear a Murcielago. I've been dealing with cars like this for almost my whole career, and everyone's big question to me is like, what's your favorite car? What's your favorite car? And it's the Aventador. If I'm going to be specific, it's Aventador S Coupe. And it's not because it's the fastest or the best looking. I think it's the best looking, and it's very fast, but it's not the fastest. These cars are, these days, there's lots of stuff that are faster than this. I like this car because of how it makes me feel when I'm driving it. For a regular production, you know, exotic car, if you put this car next to legends like LaFerrari 918, Porsche 918, and P1, just to give you some examples, people still like looking at this. Even though this particular car is 10 years old, I feel like it gets just as much attention now as it did when it was new. Lamborghini, like it kind of makes you feel like a kid again. Think about what you think is as a nice car when you're a kid. It's something that looks mean, looks kind of out of this world, looks like a spaceship. Kind of brings out the boy in all of us. because when I'm driving this and I get to hear this, it's just nothing but smiles from ear to ear. It's a 6.5 liter V12, and these engines, they scream. They sound more soprano. When it comes to Gallardos and Huracans with that 5.2 V10, they're more baritone. So these Aventadors and the Mercies and the Diablos, these engines scream high pitch, high frequency. With the V10s, it's a different sound. Still sounds great, but that's why I feel like this car, it just adds to the emotional value of the car when it sounds like that. So when you switch it from different modes, from Strada to Sport to Corsa, your dampening changes and the way your transmission shifts changes. So when you put it in Corsa, it's oh yeah, I've got the exhaust backfire. So when you put it in Corsa, it's literally like being kicked in the back. Costs you clutch life, but it shaves a few microseconds off of your lap time or your shift, but at the expense of clutch life. But you know what? Big deal. But you don't need it for the street, that's for sure. Pretty much took it to red line there. Engine's nice and warm. It's not doing any damage, don't worry. Red line looks to be just under 8,400. The longer the wheelbase is on a car, the better it's able to negotiate bumps, right? So if you're driving, if you hop out of a Huracan and into this, you're gonna find that the way it kind of treats these bumps, or how it handles these bumps and stuff like that is a bit different. More comfortable, I would say. We're just cruising down Lakeshore again in Oakville. It's very close to the dealership. It's not very busy. It's a good route to take just to try to demonstrate a few of the things. The steering is Servotronic. I like a nice stiff steering wheel, because when the steering wheel is stiff, you're able to better understand what your front wheels are doing. For example, let's say you're going and you drive onto some on a part of a paved road that maybe has some dust on it or something like that. If your steering wheel gets easy all of a sudden, or your steering feedback gets easy all of a sudden, you know that your front wheels are losing traction. I think that's really important, and it's one way that the car communicates to you. And when you're in a car that handles on a knife edge like this, then it's kind of important. Oh, I actually broke traction there. Jeez, the way the exhaust snap, crackles, and pops, it literally sounds like gunshots. So if you're rolling down the street in South Central, gearing down, I'd probably expect some return fire. The car is very incorrigible. Like, it just wants to go. You gotta treat it with respect, but you can tell that its main directive is just attack, just go. So that piece of glass I was telling you back here that lets you look kind of out the back of the car, the switch to pull it down is right here. And even though the top is open, I can hear the engine, I can hear the exhaust. When I press this to open it, there we go. Now I can hear more of the engine, more air intake, air induction. Since the car is a single clutch, sometimes what the car is going to do, especially if it's operating at temperature and it's very hot, if you're at a red light, the car will kick itself into neutral to save you clutch life. And it'll tell you, it'll go bing bong, I'm in neutral, so you know to put it into first gear. This one with some train tracks, not so bad. Me personally, I love the engines that you have to rev out. Your power band is more predictable, it's more linear, and the car is operating at full potential. Like when you have turbochargers, nothing against turbochargers. They're a great innovation in their own way, but I just love wringing the neck of a naturally aspirated car, especially one that's designed to be up there in those revs. Never met anybody who saw a Lamborghini and didn't break their neck trying to take a look at it. You know what I mean? Even though I'm kind of desensitized being around this stuff all the time, they still get my attention, and that's just a testament to their design. One neat fact about Lambo, especially the Aventador, is that Batman has one. That's clever marketing, because I think he had a Gallardo in Batman Begins, Christian Bale, and then in Dark Knight Returns he had a Murcielago LP 640 in a beautiful gray color. That's the one that they smashed. And then in the last one, I'd only had maybe 2 or 3 seconds of screen time, but he had a beautiful Aventador in a gray color. And I actually had one at one time, and it was the same color as the one that was in the movie. I ended up leasing it to one of my really good customers, and I told him, I said, I think it was, I can't remember the name of the color, it escapes me right now, Regio something, but I told my customer it's Bruce Wayne gray, and then I sent him the scene from the movie. Yeah, he loved that car. Doesn't have it anymore, but probably one of the nicest cars he's ever had. Okay, we did a bit of city driving. I'm just gonna do one highway rip so we can bang through some gears and stay under the speed limit. The town of Oakville, aka Red Light City. There's no traffic flow in this place. Red lights everywhere, for no reason. When the car's stationary, it needs to circulate air through those radiators. So especially when I'm driving around in weather like this, hitting the odd red line, you know what I mean? When you're stationary, you hear those fans come on. We're just gonna hop on the highway here. I'm gonna leave a little bit of space so I can have a little bit of fun. All right, here we go. Oh yeah. That'll put some hair on your chest. Good brakes. The brakes are good. See, now that we're inside, you can hear those fans going. So tell me what you think. Did Lamborghini do a good job with this Aventador when it comes to replacing the Murcielago? Because I think they friggin' nailed it. I'm Nemo from MVL Leasing. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.